Hi Ken, it's really nice to meet you, and we're like really proud to be a part of the youth advisory group. And it's been a really good journey with you learning about these competencies, about resilience, and being a person who's like just migrated a couple of years ago. So I'm like from a Pakistani background, and resilience in my culture is something really important. However, it might mean different to different cultures. So I think this journey with this youth advisory board and my studies have encouraged me to learn more about resilience. So yeah, I would like you to share like what is resilience for you and how do you build upon it?
Daniel, it's nice to meet you too. My culture is similar. So I'm from Hong Kong. I came here when I was 6 years old. And in Hong Kong, the culture is around rushing things, to do as much as possible. But then I realized that approach is not too sustainable in the long term for your mental health. Because if you solely focus all your energy into one goal all at once without taking breaks to recharge, then you're going to burn out very quickly. You might sustain yourself a week, maybe two, but after a while, you're going to burn out and you're going to withdraw, perhaps even worse than before. So what I recommend is to take one small action at a time. For example, even coming to the studio to film, that's taking a sort of action. And even attending unis when I don't want to, that's still taking some sort of action.
Definitely.
But also it is important to, practice self-care sometimes without, going through the whole thing, rushing it without acknowledging the journey.
I would definitely agree to that. And I'm a firm believer of like celebrating the short wins that we have. So when I was like 15 or 16, let's say, I used to also like, I was like really confused about like just getting these grades or like, like getting something in some time, like getting these grades or like getting into this college or uni. However, I felt that I started like missing things out of my life. For instance, like I did not celebrate those good grades I got. And I used to like be more worried about like a bad grade I got in a math test or something like that. So I think it's really important for us to realize how much self-care is important. And it did pay me off in these last couple of years since I've joined uni. My whole perspective about resilience has changed and developed through different courses around different faculties that I've taken, and I've reached out to different lecturers and like senior academics. So yeah, I feel like really motivated when I'm talking with highly professional people and like peers like you and like other youth members in the different places I've worked with. So I've definitely would recommend to celebrate short wins to build up on good positive emotions.
Yes, definitely. We should celebrate even when we get a bad grade.
Yeah.
Because grades don't really define us. It's just 2 hours exam, and that's going to result in the majority of your grade. And I don't believe in that as a defining factor as to who we are. And so it is important to, like I said, and like you said as well, celebrate even when our grade is not as good as we expect.
Yep. Adding on to that, I would also recommend something like journaling. The way I journal is a bit different, and I figured this out throughout the COVID time that we had. So during those Zoom classes and those endless back-to-back lectures, I thought I wasn't being much reflective, and the courses I do are like solely based on reflection sometimes. So it was one day, a fine day, and I was like, I need to reflect on what I've done so far rather than just like studying and studying. So I grabbed up my camera and I just started vlogging myself, not to publish it on like YouTube or something, just for my own self-reflection. And I started to like that, and I continued that for like, say like a week and a half or like 2 weeks. And then I started doing it monthly. And for the past 12 months, I'm doing that quite frequently, especially in the last semester. And I found a really good change in myself. That is because I think if you reflect yourself through videos, I think it's quite authoritative. You are like in your own authority, and then you can reflect on yourself really well. You can see your emotions, how they have like changed and progressed throughout those hard times and good times. And what did you feel about certain situation and how did you get out of it? So yeah, I do write sometimes as well, but I think video or like vlogging format of journaling is also a really good technique to try it out. So it has worked for me. So I think
Yeah,
it can work out.
self-reflection is definitely important. Acknowledging your past, it will help you take a step back,
Yeah,
and that act of acknowledgement will help you stay grounded in the present moment afterwards. So the next day you wouldn't, look back at your past and regret on it. Because what's really important is to focus on the now rather than the future or the past. Otherwise, because if you focus on the past, then you're gonna be filled with regrets as to, I could have done that, I could have done this. But if you also focus on the future, then you're gonna be filled with anxiety. Like, what could I possibly do in the future to prevent embarrassment to myself, like that?
definitely. And linking to that, I would definitely say a thing that I've tried myself. I think zoning out for a while is a really good technique, so that you're not like constantly having like generalized like anxiety and worrying about things all the time, whether it's like an event to attend or like studies or like gym or anything. I would say definitely having a time for yourself, whether it's like throughout a specific time during the day or like weekends, maybe like going out for a movie or like even drinking a cup of tea or like watching your favorite like show or something. But having that time aside on a during specific like intervals could be a really good regime and routine. So you're not like over stressing yourself, and like this reduces my burnout, which was really evident during my first and second year. So
Yeah, that's very important. Taking the time to recharge is crucial to your long-term plan to approach your goals. And this relates to my next point about relying on dedication and not solely on motivation, because motivation is an emotional state that comes and go. And we could be motivated one day and we're going to take some action, but then the next day that motivation might go, and then we're going to end up staying at home and possibly just binge on Netflix and YouTube.
definitely.
But about dedication is about taking one small step at a time. It's like carving a statue, hitting that stone repeatedly for perhaps over a year, and eventually it's going to become a really well-defined sculpted statue. But whereas if you only rely on motivation, that statue would only be half completed at best, and maybe even just 10% at worst.
I would definitely agree. I think every step is important. Rather, it's like a really small step or a really big leap towards your goal or achievement. But yeah, making sure that we are taking some action for that, whether it's like journaling or like going for an exercise or just like doing the work. I think it needs some kind of resilience to build that up. But yeah, I think just going out and like learning and putting yourself out there, I think it's the biggest learning for being resilient, which I've developed myself. And I think I would recommend my other like peers and like youth around me to actually focus on that, because life is too short. And if we don't like venture out, and we will fall sometimes, but we will learn from that. So I think resilience is a really key competency which everyone should develop, regardless of the age group or like, yeah.
Definitely. I think a key part to building resilience is to, like you said, taking a step out, going out our comfort zone. So our comfort zone is like a circle, but every time you go out, it expands a bit. So you just need to keep progressively venturing out. So it's going to get bigger and bigger. Eventually, you're going to be an extremely brave person that nothing will ever faze you in life.
Definitely, yeah. So I would definitely end up by saying like, find your group that is like a comfort group for you. It might be friends, like your meetup buddies, or maybe your parents, people from your culture, and like your own high school friends maybe. As long as we find the right people to build resilience with, I think, yeah, community resilience could be really well built up within communities and like within ourselves as well.